all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Hyde. This is Hide and Seek Media, where we talk about news, sports, politics, and so much more. Do you think a second civil war is possible in this country? Or can we resolve these issues without a conflict? Is there hope for the United States? Or has the greatest experiment in freedom run its course? How far are you willing to go for your beliefs? These are some of the questions I've had over the last couple of months, reading the news and seeing the divide get bigger and bigger in this country. It's hard for me to say that a civil war is not possible if we're not already in one. But I want to know what you guys think, right? So that's why I wanted to do this video, because I want to know what you guys think about where we're at in this country, what's going on, and are we in a civil war? Is it possible? Can we save this democracy and this republic without a conflict? But I wanted to get into a few articles and stories that I found that kind of show how both sides see this second American Civil War. For me, the divide in this country is obvious. There is no more middle ground for the independent middle ground voter, right, in this country. The ground that they used to stand on is completely gone. The right and left have just nuked all of that. Now, you have some people trying to build bridges on both sides, right? Trying to extend an olive branch, if you will, and work together. But those people are so few and far between now that it would take decades for them to build bridges to be able to have common ground again. And the unfortunate thing is the people that we look to lead are the ones are the ones making the divide bigger. They're not leading us back towards the middle ground, which is what made this country so great. You had your extremists on both sides, but the majority of us were in the middle. Yeah, we leaned one way or another, but we were in the middle. And that ground has just been boom, blown up. And so you have to pick a side now. As that ground started to fall, you started to see the crack and you had to scoot one way or the other. Did I scoot left? Did I scoot right? Whichever way you started to scoot, you did have to pick a side. And now the divide is getting bigger and bigger, and I don't know that we're going to be able to build bridges back to find common ground. So I'm going to dig into a couple of these stories. I'm going to show you what both sides are, how both sides view this, and I'll give you my opinions and what I see is going on and the bigger picture of all of this. But before we get into all that, if you like the work I'm doing here and you want to help support the channel, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I list crypto wallets in the description you can donate to. I have my own merch link that you can go pick you out funny political t-shirts and hoodies. And somewhere along the way in this video, there'll be a promo code that you can use to get 20% off your entire order. I also have a locals community you can go join. Now that's free to join, but I put bonus content up on locals that I don't put up anywhere else. So if you want to see that content, you have to become a premium member. And with that membership of just $2.99, you get access to all of that content, including articles I write and bonus videos that I do only for locals. So head on over there and become a member today. But the best way you can help support this channel is by smashing that like button and sharing this video on all social media platforms. Those two interactions will show YouTube's algorithm that my video needs more impressions, which will then get people to click on my video. The more people click, the more people subscribe, the bigger the channel gets. And that's how all this works, right? So what I really need you guys to do more than anything else is to smash that like button and share this video on all social media platforms. But right now, I want to get into the second civil war in this country and whether or not we're actually in one or we're going to see one. So first, I want to start with Wikipedia because it's got a Wikipedia page, which means at the very least, enough people believe that it's possible that a second civil war could happen in this country. So they've dedicated an entire Wikipedia page to it. So I want to go start here because this kind of gives a generalized view. It's a little left leaning, but it does give a generalized view of what people think about a second civil war in this country, right? So it says the Second American Civil War is an umbrella term used by some academics in order to reclassify historical eras of significant political violence in the history of the United States as a civil war, or more commonly to discuss the potential outbreak of a future civil war in the country. Discussion of a second civil war has occurred with varying degrees of frequency and sincerity since the first civil war ended in 1865. More increasingly so in the later part of the 2000s, right? The 2010, 2012 is when we really started to kind of hear, the second civil war phrases and, more rhetoric about it. And then it really ramped up in 2016 when Donald Trump won the presidency, right? So it goes on to say here, discussion of a possible second civil war entered the mainstream in earnest as a result of the polarizing effect of the 2016 election of Donald Trump. Many conservatives have come to view the government as tyrannical under Democrats such as President Barack Obama, and perceived progressive social causes such as LGBT rights, feminism, and Black Lives Matter as an existential threat to traditional Christian values. So that is right there. That's generalizing the far right as everybody who is conservative or right leaning, right? So I got no problem with LGBTQ wanting to have their rights, whatever you want to call yourself, they, them, whatever. I don't give a damn, right? You call yourself whatever you want. But when you start making laws, making me have to call you something, that's where you're infringing upon my personal freedoms now. You want me to give you your personal freedoms? Give me mine too, right? That street goes two ways. The minute it goes one way, it becomes tyrannical and we have a problem, and then and so you can kind of see what I'm saying when it kind of leans left here, because it says, meanwhile, the more moderate or progressive groups viewed Trump's election as a sign of reactionary far-right movements were gaining power and warned that Trump's rhetoric and behavior would promote autocracy, political violence, fascism, ultranationalism, and white supremacy. Now, I have not seen an uptick in white supremacy in this country or ultranationalism. And here's the problem I have with that. What is so wrong with loving your country? Right? I don't understand that. I don't understand the problem with loving your country and thinking it's the greatest country on the planet, and that I don't see the problem in that. So if you know the problem with loving your country and thinking it should be the greatest country in the world, let me know. Now, I'm not saying we should be the greatest country in the world by force. I don't agree with policing the world, right? I think we should just let them be them. If they come to us and ask us for help, okay, we'll look into the situation and then we'll deem whether it's necessary that we need to help you or not. And then if we deem you need help, we'll help. No, NATO and all that, alliances and all that's fine. I have no problem with that, right? I have a problem with us going into Afghanistan. I have a problem with us going into Iraq. I have a problem with us going into Libya, into the Middle East, and trying to control and overthrow these governments and all that. I have a big problem with all of that, right? So I don't necessarily believe that we should be imperialistic and putting our stamp on everything in the world. But I do believe that this country is the greatest country on the planet. I believe there is no greater experiment in freedom, and there never will be. And I also believe that this country is worth fighting for and dying for. And that's why I love it so much, right? Because I have these freedoms that I could get nowhere else. It goes on to say, concern about civil war rose dramatically after the first impeachment trial of Donald Trump and continued to grow during political turmoil stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic, civil unrest during George Floyd protests, and the aftermath of the historically contentious 2020 United States presidential election. Poor economic conditions from 2021 2022 inflation surge. Following the violent pro-Trump attack on the U.S. Capitol in 2021, an increasing number of political scientists, journalists, historians, intelligence officials, military leaders, former U.S. generals, investors, and political leaders on both sides of the political divide began to raise growing concern that the United States might break into a civil war. Some assert that the country is locked into a cold war between the political left and the political right that could start within the next 5 to 10 years. Others state that the 2022 midterms of the 2024 presidential election could act as a potential fire starter. Others claim that a second civil war may have already begun. One of those people is former Secretary of Labor Robert Wright. He says a second American Civil War is already happening, right? And this op-ed piece that he did for the Guardian, he goes on to say the U.S. Supreme Court upcoming decision to reverse Roe versus Wade doesn't ban abortions, it leaves the issue to the states. As a result, it will put another large brick in the growing wall separating blue and red America. The second American Civil War is already occurring, but it is less of a war than a kind of benign separation analogous of unhappy married people who don't want to go through the trauma of a formal divorce. One America is largely urban, racially and ethnically diverse, and young. The other is a largely rural or ex-urban, white and older. The split is accelerating. Red zip codes are getting redder and blue zip codes are getting bluer. Of the nation's total 3,143 counties, the number of super landslide counties where a presidential candidate won at least 80% of the vote jumped from 6% in 2004 to 22% in 2020. Surveys show Americans find it increasingly important to live around people who share their political views. Animosity toward those in opposing party is higher than any time in living memory. 42% of registered voters believe Americans in the other party are downright evil. So almost half of each people in each political party believe that the other political party is just downright evil and that there's no saving them. Now, those of us, like myself, believe there are extremists on both sides, but there is a large swath of people that are right on the internal edges, right? There's that gap, that big divide that I was talking about, but right there on the cliff edges, right? There's a bunch of people standing there looking over like, can we, those don't look like bad people across the way over there. We need to figure a way to come back together. Hopefully, we can do it without conflict. It goes on to say almost 40% would be upset at the prospect of their child marrying someone of the opposite party. Even before the 2020 election, when asked if violence would be justified if another party won the election, 18.3% of Democrats and 13.8% of Republicans responded in the affirmative. Now, you notice more Democrats responded in the affirmative than Republicans, which means it seems that the Democrats are more inclined to start a violent conflict than Republicans are, according to this data. He goes on to say, increasingly, each America is running under different laws. Red states are making it nearly impossible to get abortions, but easier than ever to buy guns. Now, that's not true. It's not easier to buy guns. It's just easier to carry them now. You still have to pass a background check and all of that, right, to be able to buy a firearm. But in a lot of states now, you don't have to do all of that extra crap to carry a firearm. There's the difference. It's not easier to buy one, just easier to carry one and have one with you. They're also suppressing votes. In Florida and Texas, teams of election police have been created to crack down on the rare crime of voter fraud, another fallout from Trump's big lie. Okay, go watch 2,000 Mules. Or watch my review of 2,000 Mules. Either one. They go on to say they're banning the teaching of America's history of racism. They're requiring transgender students to use bathrooms and join sports that reflect their gender at birth. They're making it harder to protest, more difficult to qualify for unemployment benefits and other forms of public assistance, and almost impossible to form labor unions. You see how skewed this article is? This opinion piece, right? So that's just his opinion, right? But then you have this NPR, imagine another civil war, but this time in every state. Or this, even the Brookings Institute, is the U.S. headed for another civil war? That was September 16th, 2021. Okay. I want to show you this from April 10th of 2018. Now, this is more right-leaning, and I want you to listen to how they view the dangerous divorce or upcoming second civil war. Okay, this is from the Federalist. It says it's time for the United States to divorce before things get dangerous. Right now, remind you, this was written in 2018. All right, so that's 4 years ago, mid Donald Trump's presidency, midterm. So they say divorce is hard, but it's easier than cutting the brake lines on your wife's car. It is long past time for the amicable divorce of the United States of America. There is simply no common ground with the left anymore. We are now the couple screaming at each other all night, every night, as the kids hide in their bedroom. So we cannot come together, but we do not have to live like this. The history of the world is nations breaking up and redrawing their borders. If we want to avoid this political divide turning into a deadly one, we should do likewise. Stop clinging to the past and acknowledge where we are as a country. Not where you want us to be. Not where things were when your grandpa was storming the beaches of Normandy. Where we truly are. We are a nation hopelessly divided. We are more divided now than we have ever been in our history. And before you start screaming at me about the Civil War, keep in mind that bloody conflict was fought over one major issue. In those days, take 10 families from New York and 10 families from Alabama, put them all in a room, and you'd find they mostly have the same values and bad accents. Now, fast forward to today and do the same thing. Those families have virtually nothing in common. We, as a nation, have polarized and separated from each other. Anyone who thinks this is a radical idea has an extremely narrow view of history. If you don't believe me, go try to book a plane ticket in Czechoslovakia or look at a map of Europe from the year 1600 and then look at one today. See any differences? Borders move, countries split and change hands. They do this for a myriad of reasons. Ours would be a major cultural shift toward the left and half the country refusing to go along with tyranny. I have been championing this idea for a while, and it appears others are catching on. Just last week, a group of lawmakers in South Carolina introduced a bill that would allow the state to secede if the federal government started seizing guns. Now, that's key in itself right there, because in recent weeks, major gun reform laws have been coming up in the House and Senate. which is one of the reasons why I think the January 6th hearings are going on. I think they're going on to distract you from paying attention to what's being passed in the House and Senate right now. But I digress. Let's get back to the Second Civil War. Why would lawmakers even be worried about such a thing? Because Democrats are saying it. And not just some hippie chick with armpit hair at a vegan rally. When a former justice of the Supreme Court of the United States calls for a repeal of the Second Amendment, we should all take the left seriously. The GOP has many problems, but the Democratic Party has turned into something completely un-American. The United States was founded on two things: Judeo-Christian values and a limited federal government. The entire platform of modern Democrats stands completely opposite both of those. This is the party that booed the very mention of the word God at their 2016 convention. This is the party whose candidate openly joked about killing anyone who wouldn't turn in his weapons. Their senators joke on national TV about killing the U.S. president, and the host responds by clapping with a seal, or by clapping like a seal. In 1960s the 1960s countercultural liberal protester who just wanted free weed and an end to the war in Vietnam has been replaced by a man who hunts down Steve Scalise and tries to kill him at baseball practice. The left is not playing games. They are getting bolder and they are getting more violent. They have no interest in rational compromises. Like all authoritarian ideologies, they want you to bow down before them or be destroyed for daring to resist. Now you see, so far, there is a huge difference between Robert Wright's piece, or Richard Wright, whatever his name was, and this piece, right? He goes on to say, if you believe in God and limited government, here are the entities that now proclaim their hatred for you in full view of the public: the Democratic Party, the media, Hollywood, the public education system, and now even corporate America. The GOP have the House, Senate, and presidency, and we have completely lost the culture war. Now remember, this was written in 2018 when we did have that. Now this was before the primaries or before the midterm elections, because this was in April of 2018. And so at that point, we did have the House, Senate, and presidency. And during those 2 years under Donald Trump, when we had those, nothing happened. He was getting opposed by rhinos that were Republican in name only, or didn't like the new look of the Republican Party, right? The pro-America, let's bring this back. Let's bring God and limited government back, right? Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I am not a very religious man in the fact that I don't go to church. I don't, believe a lot of those things, and it's, I have issues with the Bible and all of that. So, but I do believe in a higher spiritual presence of some kind. And I do believe in those Judeo-Christian values that, to get good, you have to give good, right? So put good out in the world, get good back. Put negative in the world, get negative back. I firmly believe that because it has happened to me in my life. And so while I don't necessarily believe in religion, I do believe in those core values of those religions, right? And so for me, I kind of take that as, I kind of believe in God, if you will, to an extent. It goes on to say, it does not have to be this way. There is a difficult but ultimately peaceful path that ends with everyone getting most of what they want. We divide the nation in two. We can and will draw the map and argue over a million different ways for a million different reasons and draw it we must. I've got my own map, and I suspect the final draft would look similar. People say both sides disagree on everything, but that is not entirely true. A mass shooting happens at a high school in Florida. Both sides do agree something should be done. People on the right think we should increase school safety. People on the left think we should restrict the gun rights of every American citizen. And they'll try to destroy the career of anyone who disagrees. Illegal immigrants are pouring across the border. The right calls for an increase in border security. The left offers them sanctuary cities and protection from federal enforcement. Every issue plays out the same way. The people on the right will only accept this kind of abuse for so long. Sooner or later, the left-wing rage mob will start coming for the careers and lives of any normal American who sees things differently. People like myself, right? That is exactly who they're talking about. It's people like myself. People like you watching this video right now. This idea of breaking up the country may seem a bit outlandish now, but you won't think so once real domestic unrest comes to your town. Our political disagreements have become a powder keg, one that already would have blown if conservatives had liberals' emotional instability. Now, that is 100% true, but that's the reason why conservatives are like that, is because we don't have that emotional stability. We see things through rational, logical eyes, and we have those values that say, even though I'm mad at you, I don't need to destroy you. So you got the gist of what the right side, how the right side sees it, right? But then you have this story from Salon. In the coming Second American Civil War, which side are you on? They go on to say, a recent public opinion poll from the University of Virginia Center of Politics finds that a majority of Trump voters want to secede from the Union. Alarmingly, nearly as many Biden voters, 41%, also feel that it may be time to split the country. This is a part of a larger pattern. Other polls and research have come to similar conclusions. It's important to resist false equivalencies and superficial analysis here. It may be true that a large percentage of both Democrats and Republicans are willing to consider seceding from the United States, but their reasons and motivations are very different. Now, remember, this is from Salon. This is from the left now. Today's Republican Party has, in practice, largely surrendered to neo-fascism and white supremacy, currents that were not far below its surface for many years. It has embraced and condoned the violence of the January 6th insurrection and has come very close to directly endorsing terrorism against its perceived political enemies. He goes on to say, for Republicans, America's multiracial democracy is anathema to their values and must be destroyed. Public opinion research has shown that tens of millions of white Republicans, especially Trump supporters, view Joe Biden as an illegitimate president who should be removed from power by whatever means necessary. Okay, so tens of millions of white Republicans, when President Donald Trump got more black voters and Hispanic voters than any other Republican president in history. But you want to talk about the tens of millions of white Republicans who see it that way. You see how they're trying to skew this article, right? To make it seem like Republicans are racist and all white people are racist, right? That's how they're trying to view that. That's how they're trying to skew your view in this article. For decades, the right-wing propaganda machine has used terrorism to radicalize its public toward ever more extreme views. In the age of Trump, that has devolved into overt and direct appeals to violence in defense of an imagined real America. In practice, this has led to hate crimes and other acts of violence against non-white people, immigrants, and other targeted groups. This was to be expected. History shows that fascism, in its various forms, is inherently violent and destructive, both towards its opponents and members of its own movement. Now, I wonder who that is. Like, who has been the more violent group since 2016? Has it been the Republicans? I'm kind of curious. Let me know what you think, because I don't remember them starting riots. I don't remember them shooting people in the streets. I don't remember them shooting senators at baseball practice. So you tell me what side is actually starting the violence and being destructive. Billions of dollars in damage done in 2020. Not done by Republicans. It goes on to say when Democrats and progressives report a desire to secede from the country, they are seeking refuge and self-preservation. To suggest any equivalence between that desire and the overtly violent yearnings of the Republican fascist movement is intellectually dishonest and morally bankrupt. Okay. Okay, so I got to give another shout out to my man, Viva Fry, because this right here is confession by projection, right? The only reason why they are even saying this is because this is what they did. This was their tactic in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. This was their tactic, right? Was violent behavior and destructive acts, right? They were protesting and rioting in the streets all over this country. It was not Republicans doing it. The prospect of a second American Civil War may seem wildly unlikely and not even logistically feasible. But if it were to happen, such an outcome would not be based on empirical facts, reality, or the complexities and nuances of public opinion polls. A large percentage of Republicans and the larger white right actually believe that they are in the existential struggle for survival against black and brown people and illegal aliens who want to replace them, sinister secularists who want to outlaw Christianity, critical race theory aimed at brainwashing their children, a liberal media that deliberately lies to them, and a cabal of elites and socialists who are treasonous and determined to destroy the real America. So, the first part of this is completely wrong. A large percentage of Republicans and larger white right actually believe that they are in an existential struggle for survival against black and brown people and illegal aliens who want to replace them. No, I don't think a large percentage. That is a very, very, very minute percentage of the right. Very, very minute. Now, sinister secularists who want to outlaw Christianity, critical race theory, brainwashing our kids, liberal media, and cabal of elites destroying America, that is all out there for everybody to see. So they're telling you what they're doing, but they're pointing the finger at the Republicans saying they're the ones doing it, right? Confession by projection. So they're trying to say, it's them doing it, it's them doing it. All the while, they're the ones passing all these laws. They're the ones actually brainwashing your kids. They're the ones that are actually deliberately lying and being caught. The funny saying now is what? The difference between the truth and a conspiracy is 6 months. It's a conspiracy. 6 months later, it's true. Why is that? The bigger question is, why do you think all of this is happening? Right? Why do you think we have the divide we have in this country? It's to destroy this country. Because in the greater picture, on the global scale, right, there are those who believe that the entire world should revolve around one set of laws, one community, one identity, so to speak, right? Because that way it'll end a lot of the conflicts in the world and all of that stuff. As a matter of fact, this is one of the things that the Bilderberg group that just recently met was put together was for this very reason, to essentially get us to that, right? And of course, the World Economic Forum wants us to get the Great Reset, right? They're obviously on board with this one world government, one world community, and all that crap. So, but you can only get that. You can only get the rest of the world on board if the United States isn't the United States, right? Because if that last bastion of hope, right, for freedom and democracy is gone, then what do all of these other countries have to look forward to or to strive to be, right? Nothing. They'll fall. They'll all become sheep and turn because there's no one to turn to say, protect us, save us from this crazy, ideological nightmare. So really, all I can tell you is whatever side you're on, be ready. This civil war is here, okay? Right now, we are fighting it. I'm fighting it right now by telling you all of this stuff, showing you the differences in how the sides see the conflict. One side sees them as evil and, racists, white supremacists, or just want to destroy everything that's not Christian, right? Or whatever. And the other side just sees them as too radical. You're just too radical to even deal with anymore, right? And at that point, if we can't find any common ground, there's no saving the marriage, right? At the end of the day, what we really need to do is pick a side, man. You're going to have to pick a side. Unfortunately, that's where we are in this country, is you're going to have to pick a side and decide for yourself what your values are, what you value most, and how you want this country to be for your kids and your grandkids. Do you want it to be the free and independent country that it is now, or that it was 20 years ago? Or do you want it to be completely gone and new countries here instead? Because that's where we're going. If we don't save this country and fix it from the inside out, there will be no more United States of America. There will be the Republic of America, and then whatever the left decides to call their country. Borders will be drawn, wars will be fought, and the greatest country in the world will be gone. I don't want to see that happen. I think this can be fixed from the inside. And it's going to take a lot of dedication and a lot of true Americans to do it. That's what we need to be voting for. That's what we need to be looking at, people that don't want to make their living as a senator or a congressman, who only want to be there to fix what they can fix and then leave. We need limited government and Judeo-Christian values. That's what we need. Whether you believe in God and the Bible and all that or not, those values are what made this country great. Building off of those values is what made this country great. But if you disagree or you have your own opinion, let me know in the comment section down below. I love to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. Smash that like button, share this video on all social media platforms. That's the way YouTube is going to give my video more impressions and get my video out there, is by you guys sharing it and smashing that like button. I appreciate everything you guys are doing for me, and I will catch y'all later. Peace.